Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be talking about how I built my full-size Dalek. I think owning a Dalek is a dream that many Doctor Who fans share, and personally I've always wanted to build one for myself. Back in 2017 I actually made a shoddy attempt to build a full-size Davros chair, and I remember spending a few days taking albeit shoddy measurements from the Character Options Davros figure and trying my best to scale them up to a full-size chair. At the time I was quite proud of this build, and to be fair it wasn't too bad considering it was made from foam board and milk carton lids. But in 2021 I decided to revisit my urge to build something Dalek related, and this time to do it properly. So in July 2021 I jumped in headfirst and started making some 60s Dalek appendages. I started with the eye stalk, which I was rather happy with at the time, and then I made the gun and the manipulator arm. These pieces only took a few weeks to make, and I figured they were a good starting place for the build. I also started a build diary on the Project Dalek forum and named the build Dalek Sigma. I was really excited to crack on with the main parts of Sigma, but life got in the way and the build got put on hold for almost a whole year. So, cut to July 2022, and I finally got around to ordering a load of materials. This is where the build really began to take off, because I had all of the materials that I needed and I also had the time to build Sigma. I figured I'd start at the top, with the dome and neck rings. The neck rings are made with MDF, and I used a router. Up until this point I'd actually never used a router, so it was quite a steep learning curve, but I did manage to get there in the end. The dome on my Dalek is an nth generation casting from an original prop, which is a rather nice bit of lineage. Whilst I was working on the neck section, I was pointed towards a post on Project Dalek, where someone was getting rid of a set of Dalek shoulders. They were perfect. They were the exact type of shoulders I needed to make my build accurate, and what's more, they were free, so I jumped at the opportunity and a couple of days later I picked them up. The construction for the neck section continued with me making the internal structure, aka the neck bin. This part allows the dome to rotate smoothly, and Sigma's quite basic when it comes to operating the dome and eye stalk. There's simply a copper pipe with a string looped around it. To move the dome you move the pipe left or right, and to move the eye stalk you pull on the string. Once I had the construction done on the neck section, I started working on the metalwork on the shoulders. I got the slats pre-cut from some aluminium, and ordered a huge sheet of aluminium to make the collars. The slats are one of the main areas of my Dalek that strays away from accuracy a bit. The original prop slats were made from clear acrylic that was painted silver from the back, whereas mine are made from aluminium to make it look a bit more heavy duty. One of the aspects of the shoulders that is quite difficult is marking out and cutting the collars and mesh, because they're such odd shapes. Once again, Project Dalek came in handy, as they had templates for these pieces that I printed out full size and just traced the shape. The collars were then cut out with a jigsaw. Before attaching all the metal to the shoulders, I made sure to give it a coat of paint. Halford's grey primer ended up being the perfect colour. Once I had the top half of my Dalek nearly finished, I started work on the skirt and fender section. The skirt was made using a plywood frame covered in some 6mm MDF sheet. I then cut some large holes in the skirt to allow the hemispheres to push through from the back. I was amazed at how quickly this skirt section came together. It was really just a matter of days. What took a lot longer, however, was sanding down the skirt and hiding all the seams. This was the more laborious part of the build, as it involved meticulously sanding every part of the skirt, but it was all worth it in the end. The fender was also a relatively simple construction, just made from some plywood and MDF. I did, however, leave the fender and skirt unpainted until I'd worked out how they would work with the motor assembly and the caster wheels. Sigma is designed to be a convention-going Dalek, so I really wanted to have it motorised. It sounds easy enough to motorise a Dalek, right? Well, this was the aspect of the build that took the most time and thinking. I bought an electric wheelchair off eBay. Whilst it wasn't cheap, it's definitely worth it to have a motorised Dalek. I ended up bolting the motors to a large sheet of plywood with some added steel for strengthening to stop the frame warping. The front wheels are also just casters bolted to some steel. I'm glad I hadn't painted the skirt at this stage because it needed a lot of modifications to accommodate the motor assembly, such as moving supports and cutting out bits of material. At this stage of the build I also decided to remake the eye stalk, as the original one I had wasn't quite up to scratch. The new eye stalk also incorporated lights, which gave much more life to the prop. My Dalek was painted using aerosol spray paints, as it's the way I felt I could get the best possible finish. I got through a huge amount of paint on this project though, and ended up repainting a few sections because I wasn't happy with the first finish. Once all the components were painted, I moved on to the assembly for each section. This was the fun stage, as it all started to come together. Once the construction had been done, I started work on the voice. To make a Dalek sound, well, like a Dalek, you need something called a ring modulator. Luckily, Project Dalek sell voice modulators, and I must say they are very good. I wired it up following the instructions, and unlike most of my electronic projects, it worked first time. The modulator is wired up to the speakers and dome lights in order to allow the dome lights to flash in sync with my voice. The speakers for Sigma are currently situated in the skirt section, although I may make Sigma easier to hear and move the speakers into the neck section, just so that the sound can travel out easier. Sigma is specifically a replica of Dalek number 7, which first appeared in The Chase. I wanted to build this Dalek because I'm a huge fan of the 60s Dalek, and I think the design was spot on right off the bat. There's something so iconic about the original 60s props, and they're very recognisable. Everyone knows what a Dalek is, right? Also, Dalek 7 had several identifying features which make it stand out from the other 60s prop, making it unique. Sigma's first outing was to MCM London Comic Con this October, and it went down a treat. Luckily nothing broke and Sigma lasted for the entire day, though sitting in a Dalek for 8 hours certainly took its toll. But I'm immensely proud of how it went, and was amazed at how well it was received. I'm hoping to take Sigma to a number of events in the future, which I'm very much looking forward to. But that will be all for this video, so thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.